Imagine being an orphan, struggling with life, and then being kidnapped at the age of 7. You would think, what could be worse? But that was only the beginning. The people who kidnapped you were mad scientists. They did cruel experiments on you, putting minerals from the gate and monster cells inside your body, slowly changing you into a chimera hunter. For 70 years, they forced you to fight monsters again and again. When your body started to fall apart, they left you inside a dungeon to die. But what they didn't know was that they had also placed the power of an immortal monster within you. That power brought you back to life and turned you human once again. This is the sad story of our main character, who now stands at a crossroads. One path is revenge, and the other is to forget everything and live a normal life inside the dungeon. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel. Now let's begin. One day, a sudden tear appeared in the sky, forming a blazing red cross-shaped rift. Its edges crackled with energy, radiating an ominous glow, as if the heavens themselves had been split apart. On that fateful day, everything began to change. From the ominous rift in the sky, a gate tore open, flooding the world with chaos. Swarms of monstrous, insect-like creatures poured out, their wings beating furiously as they descended upon the earth. And with their arrival, destruction followed. From beyond the rift emerged a world that would later be known as the Demon Realm. From its depths, ferocious and merciless monsters poured into the human world, their presence bringing chaos and ruin wherever they went. In humanity's darkest hour, certain individuals awakened with extraordinary abilities. These chosen ones, known as hunters, rose to stand against the monstrous threat, wielding powers that defied ordinary limits. These hunters were individuals who had awakened to the power of mana, granting them extraordinary abilities that set them apart from ordinary humans. With the emergence of these empowered individuals, humanity finally found the strength to fight back, launching a counterattack against the monstrous invaders. As the years went by, the scars of war slowly began to fade. Cities rose once more from the rubble, rebuilt under the warm glow of a new dawn. Though countless challenges still lingered, life gradually found its rhythm again. At the very least, some people were able to reclaim and enjoy a semblance of normalcy. But peace was fragile. The threat was never truly gone, as monstrous creatures continued to emerge, forcing humanity to remain vigilant and ready for battle. To combat the relentless waves of monsters pouring into the world, warriors fought fiercely, determined to hold the line and protect humanity from annihilation. With a fierce cry, the warrior swung his weapon, striking at the monstrous abomination before him. Its gaping maw lined with jagged fangs and filled with unblinking eyes. Every blow was a desperate attempt to keep the horrors at bay. Despite their bravery, there was a critical problem. The number of hunters who naturally awakened their powers was far too few to match the overwhelming tide of monsters. Thus, in response to this dire shortage, something new was created, a force born out of necessity to stand against the relentless threat. It was none other than artificial life, beings created by human hands. Their glowing eyes and formidable presence signaled a new weapon in the fight for survival. This creation was known as the Chimera Hunter, a powerful artificial warrior forged to annihilate monsters with unmatched precision and devastating force. The experiments utilized grim materials, corpses of death row inmates and animals, serving as the foundation for creating these artificial warriors. They also incorporated rare minerals harvested from deep within the gates, their otherworldly energy serving as a vital component in the creation process. Monster cells were added to the mix, infusing the creations with the power and ferocity of the very beasts they were designed to hunt. In a desperate bid for survival, humanity pushed the limits of science and morality, fusing the remains of beasts and humans within ominous laboratories to forge weapons capable of turning the tide. These advancements made it possible to mass-produce chimera hunters, ensuring a steady army of artificial warriors to confront the monstrous threat. This alliance was hailed as the perfect fusion of the scientific and hunter communities, combining intellect and combat prowess to create humanity's ultimate line of defense. This collaboration significantly reduced hunter mortality rates and saved countless lives, marking a turning point in humanity's battle for survival. Decades later, under the quiet of night, An illegal chimera research lab operated in secrecy. Inside, a weary worker sighed, muttering to himself that he only had one last subject to check before he could finally head home. In the B-18 high-grade chimera storage, two researchers moved cautiously down the dimly lit corridor. One of them stopped, shining his flashlight on a particular cell, number 17. "His arm looks a little rotten," he remarked with concern. One researcher shouted urgently, "Hey, don't go near him." The other, unfazed, replied calmly, "It's fine. His brain is damaged. He won't move without orders." A monstrous creature was chained to the ground, its body twisted and unnatural. Its right arm was grotesquely deformed, oozing with strange growths. One of the researchers shined a light on it and said, "His right arm is completely messed up. Could this be a side effect of the experiment?" One of the researchers scoffed and said, "Why are you so scared of a guy who can't even see properly?" But as he spoke, the creature's golden, slit-pupiled eye suddenly snapped open. One of the researchers stammered, "Let's just roughly pass it. At this rate, he'll be discarded anyway." The other gave a casual nod and replied, "All right, man." The chained creature sat silently in the dimly lit cell, its piercing eyes locked on the two researchers. Neither spoke, the heavy atmosphere pressing down on them as the sound of chains subtly echoed in the air. Inside the lab director's office, a cold and detached voice declared, "Number 17 is now useless," sealing the creature's fate without a hint of remorse. One of the scientists reported, "His body is too badly damaged. If it were anyone else, it would have died already." The lab director, seated behind his desk, responded coldly, "How much longer does it have?" One of the scientists replied, "A month at most." The other nodded in agreement, adding, "I agree." The man smirked slightly and said, "Deploy him in this gate blockade operation. Have him guard the rear when the hunters retreat." Under the dim, cold light, the chained beast lay battered and bloodied. The directors commanded the researchers not to input a return command. Far away, in the scorching skies of the Demon Realm's Rocky Mountain region, the ground cracked beneath a lone figure. Golden streaks of power burst through the air. From the red sky above, a massive golden-scaled beast dove with its jaws wide open, teeth glinting menacingly. Its roar shook the heavens as it descended upon the horned figure below. Number 17 braced himself, his clawed legs digging into the ground as golden energy swirled around him. Blood ran down his back, but his eyes were fierce. The golden beast lunged, but number 17 swung his massive claw and ripped it apart in midair. Suddenly, the ground around him shattered violently as fiery projectiles rained down. Explosions filled the battlefield with smoke and fire, but number 17 stood tall, his eyes fixed ahead. From the cracked earth, a monstrous plant-like beast erupted, roaring as venomous vines whipped outward. The ground shook, but the white-haired number 17 didn't flinch. His massive clawed limbs crushed the earth as his glowing eyes radiated killing intent. With a burst of power, he launched into the sky, leaving a blazing trail behind him. The plant beast recoiled in fear, but it was too late. Midair, number 17 twisted and struck, his claws slicing the monster apart, chunks of red flesh raining down across the battlefield. Explosions shook the battlefield, debris flying everywhere. Number 17 opened his jaws wide, rows of sharp teeth gleaming as blue lightning sparked around them. In his mouth, a glowing sphere of energy formed, building up for a deadly attack. A flash of blue lightning blasted from his maw, shooting down like a spear of pure destruction. The beam struck its target directly, scorching everything in its way. The creature was swallowed in the blinding light, its body convulsing as it let out a terrible scream. Sparks crackled across its frame until it looked ready to tear apart from the inside. The battlefield lay in ruin, streaks of lightning still crackling in the air as the dust settled. The group stared at the lone figure ahead, their gazes filled with awe. "Amazing," one of them breathed, unable to hide their astonishment. "To annihilate so many monsters with a single attack." Another remarked, his voice tinged with respect, as expected of an S-class Chimera hunter. The man glanced at the swirling fiery portal in the distance, his expression tense. By the way, there's no sign of the gate closing. It's the third day, he said gravely. But then another guy, in a calmer tone, told him, don't worry too much. No matter how many monsters pour out, as long as we have that S-class Chimera, we can hold out indefinitely, he declared confidently. But as he spoke, a towering mass of monsters surged upward like a dark tidal wave, racing toward number 17, who stood defiantly at the peak. That man gripped his weapon tightly, the steel gleaming under the ominous crimson sky. We just have to, he muttered, bracing himself for what was to come. We just have to, he repeated before swinging his blade in a swift, deadly arc. Green blood splattered as the monster was cleaved apart. Deal with the stragglers that get through. The gate pulsed ominously, its swirling darkness framed by a blazing crimson glow. An unsettling hum filled the air, as if the portal itself was alive and waiting to unleash what lay beyond. A voice rang out urgently. Red gate disappearance signal confirmed. The tension in the air thickened as the man in the long coat tightened his grip on his weapon. His eyes locked forward. It's here, he said, his tone calm yet edged with anticipation as the last remnants of slain monsters littered the ground around them. All right, retreat everyone. Exit through the gate. The order rang out with urgency as boots pounded against the ground, their wearers sprinting toward safety before the portal closed. A clenched fist smashed forward with explosive force, the impact shattering the surface it struck as shock waves rippled outward. Number 17 continued fighting. A massive red and blue creature attacked fiercely, its claws striking down at number 17 on the ground. Two hunters sprinted away from the scene. One of them, a red-haired woman, called out, "Wait! Aren't we taking number 17? The dark-haired man beside her replied without slowing down. They said not to retrieve him. The red-haired woman questioned in disbelief. Isn't that expensive? Meanwhile, number 17, with piercing yellow eyes, struggled under the crushing grip of the massive red and blue claw. They said its lifespan was over anyway. The man's detached voice replied as they sprinted toward the gate. The red-haired woman's voice wavered with guilt. I feel kind of bad. If it weren't for him, the damage would have been immense this time. The dark-haired man shot her a side glance and replied bluntly, Why worry unnecessarily? You know those guys are practically inorganic. His words were cold, stripping away any sense of individuality. Number 17 was trapped in a crushing grip, blood dripping where the claws dug into his flesh. The enemy's hold was unyielding, as if determined never to let him go. But with one brutal strike, number 17 tore the limb free, spraying white fluid across the air. The blood-soaked figure, hair whipping wildly, stood tall despite the chaos. In the silence that followed, only one truth rang in number 17's mind. They're monsters. The mission was simple: protect the hunter's rear at all costs. The battle raged on. Number 17 tore through enemies, severed limbs flying across the ground. He stood firm, holding the line so others could move forward safely. A monstrous jaw lunged toward him, glowing eyes filled with hunger. But before it could bite down, blue lightning crackled through the darkness. Power surged from number 17, a sphere of energy blazing in his grasp. His golden eye gleamed fiercely under his horned crown as he unleashed a colossal blast of blue and white energy. The ground split open, debris flying high as the destructive beam ripped everything in its path apart. Even as smoke and lightning filled the battlefield, a calm voice echoed in his mind. Do you understand? Wrapped in a green poisonous mist, number 17 staggered forward, bleeding heavily. Blood dripped from his jagged teeth, his claws still raised, refusing to surrender. Through the haze, the words pulsed in his head. There is nothing else. When the mission ends, you don't return. The comms crackled with number 17's cold report. Retreat route secured. His severed claw fell heavily to the ground, lifeless. The mission was complete. Around him, The battlefield was covered in green monster blood, bodies piled in broken heaps. At the center, number 17 lay battered and dying, while the remains of a severed claw rested beside him. A massive, slime-covered monster loomed in the light, its jagged teeth bared as thick green fluid dripped from its body. In his mind, a voice instructed him that return was not permitted. On this day, the final mission report for Chimera Hunter number 17, who met his demise, was recorded as follows. Number of hunter deaths, 0. The battlefield was littered with the corpses of countless monsters. Their twisted forms sprawled in heaps across the cracked earth. In the foreground, the massive segmented body of a slain creature lay still, green blood pooling beneath it. At the center of the carnage, a lone figure remained motionless, surrounded by the remnants of the brutal fight. The once towering threat had been eradicated, leaving only silence in its wake. Total number of monsters subjugated, 1,823. The staggering count was a testament to the scale of the battle. One hunter against an overwhelming tide of monstrosities, leaving behind nothing but carnage. At the moment of death, in number 17's mind, fragments of an unrecorded past began to surface. He recalled that he had once been a complete human and that he was kidnapped at the age of 9. Starting from that memory, a panorama of number 17's life began to flash before his eyes. Unfortunately, number 17's damaged brain couldn't fully comprehend the meaning behind those scenes. He calmly watched his past life unfold. 79 years ago, at the District 13 orphanage, a man stood outside holding a baby. Looking down at the child, he read softly, "The child's name is." 70 years ago, a boy sat silently on a chair, his head lowered. A man stood before him, scolding. "You hit a friend with a stone because they teased you a bit. How many times has this happened now?" The boy remained wordless. Snow fell quietly outside as the doors slammed shut with a loud bang. "We can't keep you anymore." With those words echoing in his mind, the boy stepped out into the falling snow, arms crossed against the cold, leaving the orphanage behind. The boy collapsed face first into the snow, his breath visible in the freezing air. A looming shadow stretched over him, hinting at someone or something approaching. One of the men scoffed, remarking on how, in the slums, children could be found rolling around in the snow. Another voice followed, cold and transactional, asking, "How much is all this?" Strapped to a cold metal table, the boy lay motionless, his limbs bound by restraints and electrodes fixed to his skin. His mouth was gagged, preventing any cry for help. A gloved hand loomed over him, holding a syringe filled with a mysterious purple liquid. From somewhere in the room, a voice questioned with chilling detachment, "Is it a new experimental subject in a dimly lit laboratory?" Several scientists stood around the restrained boy, discussing his identity with clinical detachment. "What number?" one asked. "It's number 17, another replied without hesitation. A quiet observation followed, laced with grim certainty. Spells must have been cast to ensure there was no chance of escape. One of the masked scientists gave a curt order. "Okay, record it." Another, holding a clipboard, noted in a clinical tone, "Number 17, S+ silkworm larva cell injection." Number 17's restrained hand twitched violently, the black tattoo stark against his pale skin. One of the observers spoke with clinical anticipation. "Let's watch now. What kind of reaction will appear?" One of the researchers stared at the readings in disbelief. "No side effects." Another observed the restrained boy in the chair and added, "A special ability has appeared, but his human form and ego are maintained." One of the researchers examined the data carefully and remarked, "It seems he has a unique constitution." Another, with a cold and clinical tone, ordered, "Keep implanting various things until there's a reaction." The group of scientists huddled closely together under the harsh white light, their lab coats forming a wall of secrecy. Whatever they were observing demanded their full attention. The air in the dimly lit lab grew thick with tension. Then, 64 years ago, in the midst of a crumbling room, Number 17 stood firm, energy radiating in a brilliant blue sphere between his hands. The ground beneath him cracked from the force, while behind him, two figures struggled, one coughing on the floor and another cowering in fear. In front of him, a beast with golden fur and a spiked crest loomed, the tension between them crackling in the air. A massive horned insect-like creature with a yellow and black armored body charged forward at full speed. Its jagged jaws were wide open in a feral roar, sharp fangs bared, and its bladed wings cut through the air as it hurtled toward its target with deadly intent. The blurred cityscape behind it made its speed and ferocity even more terrifying. The monstrous hornet lunged forward with blinding speed, but suddenly a brilliant sphere of blue energy surged toward it. The intense light illuminated its snarling jaws and menacing stinger. Moments before the inevitable impact, Number 17 extended his gloved hand toward the incoming force, blue energy swirling violently at his command. Sparks of flame danced along his arm, and the ground beneath his feet cracked and splintered from the sheer power radiating outward. The woman, clutching a young girl tightly in her arms, looked up with a relieved smile. Her voice trembled with emotion as she said, "Thank you for saving me." The fear in her eyes was slowly replaced by gratitude, while the child held on to her quietly, still wary of their surroundings. One of the uniformed men, his shoulders heavy with guilt, looked at Number 17 and said, "I'm sorry to put such a burden on a child like you, Number 17. His face calm and voice steady. Number 17 simply replied, "It's fine." The scene shifted to a pair of sturdy black boots stepping onto the cracked ground, the words 59 years ago marking the moment. Number 17 stood in the middle of a ruined battlefield, surrounded by shattered debris, the severed limbs of monstrous creatures, and craters embedded in the ground. His mind felt clouded, his thoughts fragmented. Why am I here? The question echoed in his head as he struggled to recall anything. What was I doing just now? He wondered, staring blankly at the carnage around him, as if a crucial piece of his memory had just slipped away. From behind, a man in a white lab coat with round glasses called out, "Oh, Number 17, why did you stop?" There was a faint, almost mocking curiosity in his tone as he added, "Did your memory get confused?" His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the chaotic battlefield around them. The man in the white lab coat threw his arms wide, his face lit with unsettling excitement. "Your side effects have finally begun," he declared almost gleefully. Standing a short distance away, Number 17 stared at him in confusion, his thoughts clouded. Side effects, he echoed silently, unsure of what the scientist meant. The man in the lab coat carefully documented his observations, noting, as a result of implanting over 500 types of monster cells for 15 years, 54 years ago, deep within a secret laboratory, relentless experiments took place. The result was extraordinary. A being with power beyond measure, possessing at least an S-rank hunter classification, his true strength practically incalculable. Now bound in heavy chains and drenched in blood, Number 17 sat restrained in a chair, his monstrous aura radiating in the dim light. The scientist, unable to hide his manic pride, declared him the lab's greatest success. 20 years ago, a gloved hand held out a piece of raw meat, the gesture deliberate and coaxing. "All right, Number 17. Good boy." The voice called out softly, as if speaking to something dangerous that needed careful handling. The young woman flinched back in shock as a large bird-like creature with sharp features and blazing orange eyes lunged toward her. "Whoa!" she exclaimed instinctively, stepping away from the sudden aggressive movement. The woman crouched a short distance away, smiling in satisfaction. "See, I told you it would eat," she said, watching the creature tear into its meal. This monster was Number 17. Nearby, a mother turned away in disgust. "It's gross." A man gently covered his young son's eyes. "Don't look at things like that," he said firmly. 3 days ago, a blinding surge of energy erupted in the air, splitting the sky with crackling light. Number 17's golden eyes widened, reflecting the storm of power as arcs of electricity danced violently around him. massive and grotesque. Number 17 let out a final haunting roar as his body began to dissolve into fragments of light. His fading voice echoed through the air, repeating in a broken mechanical tone, "All missions complete." As the sun dipped low on the horizon, its golden rays illuminated a vast, jagged chasm that tore through the barren land. The ground was littered with bones and remnants of the fallen, a silent testament to the devastation that had unfolded here. A haunting wind whispered through the canyon, carrying with it the echoes of battles long past. Amid the desolate expanse, a single weathered bone lay half-buried in the dust. The bone shifted suddenly, scraping against the dry earth as if stirred by an unseen force. In an instant, with a blinding pillar of light, the bone erupted from the ground, tearing through the darkness and piercing the sky. A massive spinal column brimming with crackling energy shot up from the earth, each segment pulsing with unnatural vitality. The narration echoed ominously. This was no ordinary relic. It carried within it the combined power of 527 different types of monster cells, a grotesque fusion of countless creatures' strengths. Its skeletal frame continued to assemble, ribs locking into place around a dark, pulsating core. This abomination was no mere monster, but Chimera Hunter number 17, a weapon forged from the cells of hundreds of deadly beasts, reborn for one purpose alone. From its spine and ribs, sinewy cords of muscle began weaving into place, twisting and binding together with unnatural speed. The once lifeless bones pulsed with grotesque vitality, each fiber brimming with monstrous power as the creature's body took shape. A blinding explosion erupted, flooding the darkness with searing light. Then, bare feet touched down softly on the cracked ground, the air around them still hazy with lingering smoke from the blast. He looked down at his hands in disbelief, his voice trembling. What is this? The unfamiliar warmth of flesh replaced what he had once been. A haze of confusion filled his mind as he took in his transformed body. Human again now? He asked himself, the words barely more than a whisper. Bathed in the warm glow of the rising sun, he stood at the center of the barren land, his shadow stretching long across the cracked earth. The massive stone arch framed the light behind him, as if the world itself were announcing his return. Revival. What happens next? Stay tuned, the next part is coming soon. Don't miss it, and make sure to watch the next episode.